Hey everyone, welcome back to the deep dive.
Hello.
Today we're tackling something that, well, it comes up so often for anyone learning English. It's this feeling,
hmm
wanting to move beyond just like being understood to
Yeah.
actually sounding natural.
Yeah, that's the goal for so many people, isn't it? That sense of fluency, sounding smooth.
Exactly. Like the words just flow, the rhythm feels right, and you feel like you're part of the music of English, not just hitting separate notes.
Absolutely. People hear native speakers and they notice that smooth, almost effortless quality, the way sentences connect, sounds blend together.
And they think, okay, how do I get that? It's more than just grammar, right? It's that authentic ring.
Definitely. It's about the prosody, the melody of the language.
Right. And there's this really common idea, this myth almost, that the only way to get there, to get that natural sound, is total immersion. Like you have to move to an English-speaking country.
Yeah, you hear that all the time. And look, living abroad, it's fantastic, obviously, constant practice.
Sure, it helps enormously.
But the sources we've been looking at, they're really clear on this. It is not the only way. Not at all.
That's such a relief for so many people, I think.
It is. Because there are specific techniques, things you can actually do, right where you are now, to train your ears, your mouth, your brain, to really pick up and replicate those natural patterns.
It kind of debunks that big barrier, doesn't it? You don't have to wait until you can move to London or New York or Sydney.
Exactly. You're not stuck. The materials we reviewed, they basically outline how you can become your own coach, a really effective self-trainer.
Using all the authentic stuff that's out there now, podcasts, videos, movies.
Precisely. Leveraging all that content. These sources give you a genuine roadmap to sounding more like a native speaker no matter where you live.
Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive. We want to unpack that roadmap for you, give you the core strategies from these sources.
Like practical steps.
We'll start with how to listen differently, more effectively, observing how English is spoken, not just focusing on what is said.
That's the foundation, really.
Then we'll get into the active stuff techniques for actually copying those sounds and rhythms.
Like shadowing, which we'll definitely break down.
And also enriching your speech, using those everyday natural phrases that native speakers use without thinking.
Making it sound less like a textbook.
Right. And we'll look at some common traps, things people often do wrong when they're aiming for this natural sound.
Good to be aware of those, definitely.
And maybe touch a bit on the cultural side of spoken English too, how it all fits together.
It's all connected.
So yeah, it's all about giving you the tools, the actionable steps to train yourself.
Think of it like putting on a new pair of glasses, linguistic glasses.
Huh, I like that.
You'll start hearing things, noticing details you didn't hear before. And crucially, you'll learn how to actually reproduce them.
It's less about just knowing facts, more about building a skill.
Exactly. Like
Right.
learning an instrument. You watch the pros, you practice their techniques. We're kind of dissecting the sound of natural English so you can learn to put it back together yourself.
Okay, let's get into it then. That first big strategy, the power of observation and focused listening.
Right. So usually when you listen, your brain's #1 job is understanding the meaning.
What are they saying?
Yeah. What's the message? Which is vital, obviously.
Mm.
But to sound natural yourself, you need to shift some of that mental energy
To the how.
to the how. How are they actually saying it? You need to listen like a detective almost, analyzing the delivery itself.
Okay, so what are we listening for specifically? What details?
Well, the sources highlight a few key things. First up is tone.
Okay. Tone, like
Yeah.
happy, sad.
Well, yes, that's part of it, the emotion.
Yeah.
But it's also more subtle. It's how the pitch, the voice quality, changes within sentences and across them. It conveys nuance, attitude.
Right, like the same word can mean different things depending on the tone.
Exactly. Think about really. Just that one word.
Okay.
Say it with a high rising pitch at the end. Really.
Mm.
That's usually surprise, right?
Yeah, genuine surprise.
Now say it flat or maybe falling slightly. Really.
Mm.
That could be skepticism. Doubt
Or even boredom sometimes.
or boredom, yeah. Or you could draw it out with a particular emphasis. Really. And now it sounds sarcastic.
Same word, totally different feeling.
Totally different. And native speakers do this constantly, usually without even thinking about it. So the first step is just training your ear to notice those shifts in tone and what they signal. It's incredibly powerful.
Okay, tone, got it. Rhythm,
This is a big one for English.
the flow, the beat of it.
Yeah, the beat. English isn't like some languages where every syllable gets more or less the same amount of time, the same stress.
Like Spanish or French, maybe? More syllable time?
Right. English is what linguists call stress-timed. which means certain syllables or whole words get stressed. They're louder, longer, maybe higher in pitch.
The important words.
Usually important words, yeah.
Well.
Content words, nouns, main verbs, adjectives, adverbs. They get the stress.
And the other words, the little ones.
The function words like a, they, to, is, are, and, but they tend to be unstressed. They get reduced, said really quickly, sometimes almost swallowed.
Ah, okay. So it's not an even rhythm. It's more like bouncy.
That's a good way to put it, like, I want to go to the store. The main beats are on want and store.
Right. I want to go to the store.
But the little words in between I, to go to,
They're quick and unstressed.
whereas if you said, I want to go to the store,
Yeah.
equals stress on everything.
It sounds very unnatural, doesn't it? Very robotic or laborious to a native ear. That variation, that contrast between stressed and unstressed syllables, that's the natural rhythm.
Okay, that makes sense. Stress on important words, unstress on the small grammatical ones.
Generally, yeah. And this variation in rhythm, this stressing and unstressing, leads directly to the next big thing, connected speech.
This is where it gets tricky, but also where the smoothness comes from, right?
Absolutely critical for sounding smooth. Connected speech is basically the idea that words in a sentence don't live in little separate boxes.
They blend together. They flow into each other. Sounds at the end of one word link up with sounds at the beginning of the next. Sometimes sounds even change, or they merge, or they just disappear completely.
Okay, examples. We need examples.
Definitely. So the sources give loads of common ones. Think about asking someone, what are you doing?
Okay, standard phrase.
Do you often hear native speakers carefully say, what are you doing? In a casual chat?
No, definitely not. It's much faster.
Right. It usually gets reduced and connected into something that sounds more like, what you doing? Or even what you doing.
What you doing? Yeah, okay, what's happening there?
Well, several things. The to sound at the end of what often changes to a chi sound because it's followed by the y sound in you. That's assimilation.
What you becomes what just.
Exactly. Then the word are often gets reduced down to just an air sound, or sometimes disappears altogether in very fast speech.
Okay.
And the G at the end of doing is often dropped in informal speech, so it becomes doing.
Wow. Okay, so what are you doing morphs into what you doing. Oh, yeah, that's a big change.
It is. But it's totally normal. Everyday spoken English. Or take another classic, I don't know.
The ultimate phrase?
Said slowly, yes, it's I don't. Oh, no. 3 distinct words. But how does it usually sound?
More like, I don't know.
I don't know. Exactly. The T at the end of don't often gets dropped or is very soft, especially before a consonant sound like the in know. And the 2 words just blend. Don't know becomes dunno.
Okay. Any others that are really common?
Oh, loads. Going to very often becomes gonna.
Right. I'm going to go.
Want to often becomes want.
I want to learn.
Have to can sound like hafta. The V changes to an F sound before the T.
Hafta. Yeah, heard that.
Did you? Often sounds like did ya.
Did ya?
Yeah, the did sound and the I sound combine to make a J sound. Did you see that?
Wow. Okay, so these aren't mistakes. This isn't lazy speaking.
Not at all. That's a really important point the sources make. These features, linking sounds, dropping sounds, elision, changing sounds, assimilation, they are fundamental characteristics of fluent, natural, spoken English. They help the language flow smoothly and efficiently.
And it's these things, these connections and reductions all added together that make spoken English sound so fast and maybe a bit blurry to learners at first.
Exactly. You might know the words, what are you doing, perfectly on paper. But when you hear, what you doing, you might not recognize it initially because the sound shape is different from the sum of the individual words pronounced carefully.
But once you start listening for these patterns, recognizing gonna and wanna and didja as actual units,
then you start hearing the language more like a native speaker does.
Yeah.
And you start understanding why it sounds the way it does.
And the sources really emphasize how much these seemingly small details contribute to sounding natural overall. It's not just your grammar or vocab.
Absolutely. It's the melody, the rhythm, the flow. If your pronunciation of individual words is perfect, but you lack this natural connected speech and rhythm, you'll still sound, well, distinctly foreign.
Like you're speaking word by word.
Exactly. But starting to incorporate these features, even just the most common ones, even if it's not perfect at first, it makes a huge difference in how smooth and natural you sound.
So the big action item here, the takeaway from this section, is really about changing how you listen.
Yes. Consciously shift your focus.
Next time you're watching Netflix or listening to a podcast or even overhearing native speakers, don't just follow the story.
Listen for the music.
Yeah, listen for the music. Where does the voice go up? Where does it go down? Which words are loud and long? Which ones are quick and quiet?
Can you spot the connections? Can you hear gonna or wanna or hafta? Can you hear words linking together?
Just developing that awareness, tuning your ear to actually notice these things, that's the critical first step because
Yeah.
you can't copy a sound you aren't really hearing properly.
It's like training your ear musically. At first, maybe you just hear the melody, but then you start hearing the harmony, the rhythm section, the individual instruments. You're refining your auditory perception specifically for spoken English.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. First, learn to hear the details.
Mm-hmm.
So once your ear is starting to pick up on these things, the tone, the rhythm, the connected speech, what's next? How do you go from just hearing it to actually doing it?
Right. This is where we move from passive observation to active imitation. And the technique that pretty much all the sources champion for this is shadowing.
Shadowing. Okay, I've heard of this. It sounds kind of intense.
It can be, but it's incredibly effective because it's so active. It directly links what you're hearing with the physical act of speaking.
You're not just thinking about the sound.
You're making them immediately after or even at the same time as a native speaker.
Like being their echo or their shadow.
Exactly. The core idea is just that. Copy them. Copy their sound, their intonation, their rhythm, their speed, as closely as you possibly can. Mimicry.
Okay, how do you actually do it? Is it just playing audio and talking over it?
There's a bit more structure to it, usually recommended for getting the most out of it. The sources break it down into a pretty clear process. And importantly, you don't try to shadow like a whole movie right away.
Start small.
Yes. Step 1, choose a short audio or video clip. And short is key here, maybe just a minute or two. Something manageable.
Like a scene from a TV show or a bit of news.
Perfect. A short dialogue from a sitcom, a snippet of a podcast interview, a YouTube clip, whatever interests you, because that helps motivation. But keep it short and repeatable.
Okay, got my short clip, then what?
Step 2, listen to just one sentence from that clip. Isolate one sentence. Listen to it carefully, maybe a couple of times.
Okay.
Then pause the audio. Now you repeat that sentence out loud, but you're not just saying the words. You're trying really hard to mimic the speaker's exact delivery.
So matching the pitch changes.
Matching the intonation. Yep. Where does their voice go up and down? Matching the stress patterns. Which words did they emphasize? Matching the speed and the pauses.
Even the feeling behind it. Like if they sound annoyed or excited.
Yes. Even try to capture the emotion. You're aiming for an exact replica of that one sentence. You might repeat it yourself a few times, focusing on getting closer each time.
So listen, pause, repeat, trying to match everything.
Exactly. This pause and repeat step is really important, especially at the start. It lets you focus your attention without the pressure of keeping up in real time. It's like practicing a tricky guitar riff slowly before playing it fast.
Makes sense. Break it down first.
Right. Then comes step 3. Play that same short audio clip again, maybe just a sentence or a slightly longer chunk. And this time you speak at the exact same time as the speaker.
So talking along with them.
Yes, like an echo that's right on their heels, or even perfectly synchronized. Your goal here is to match their rhythm and speed as perfectly as you can.
Okay, this sounds like the real shadowing part.
It is. And don't worry too much about understanding every single word while you're doing this simultaneous speaking. The main focus is on the sound, the flow, the physical feeling of producing the speech pattern along with them.
And you do this multiple times with the same clip.
Yes, repetition is key. Shadow the same short clip, maybe at one sentence or a few sentences over and over again. This repetition is what builds the muscle memory.
Muscle memory for speaking.
Absolutely. Your tongue, your lips, your jaw, your vocal cords. They are learning the movements required to make those English sounds and rhythms smoothly and automatically.
Like practicing scales on a piano.
Precisely. The sources use that great example. Practicing Ross from Friends saying, "We were on a break."
Ah, yes, iconic.
It's not just the words, "we were on a break." It's the way he says it, the frantic energy, the rising pitch on break, the frustration in his voice.
Okay, so using the steps. First, listen to him say it. Then pause and try to repeat, "We were on a break." Copying that sound, that feeling. Do that a few times.
Right, get the feel for it.
Then play the clip again and try to say, "We were on a break." Right along with him, matching his speed and pitch exactly.
Exactly. You're trying to become Ross for that one line.
And the real benefit here, the source's stress, is this direct physical training.
It is. You are physically practicing the coordination, the breath control, everything needed to produce natural English sounds and rhythms. It's not just theoretical knowledge in your head.
And it must sharpen your ear too, right? Because you're constantly comparing your own voice to the original.
Definitely. You hear the difference between your attempt and the native speaker's version much more clearly when you're trying to produce it yourself. It creates this feedback loop.
Yeah.
Listen, produce, compare, adjust.
And research actually backs this up, that active mimicry is better than just listening.
Yeah, the studies mentioned show that pronunciation and fluency improve significantly more with methods involving active production and mimicry, like shadowing, compared to just passive listening.
It's like that gym analogy again. You can't get stronger just watching people lift weights.
You got to do the reps yourself. Shadowing is your pronunciation workout. It builds those speech muscles.
Okay, powerful technique. Listen closely, then shadow actively. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
So we've covered listening deeply to the how and actively copying sounds and rhythms with shadowing. What's the next layer for sounding natural?
The next piece is about the actual words and phrases you choose to use.
Ah, vocabulary. But not just any vocabulary.
Right. It's about moving beyond maybe just relying on the vocabulary you learn from a textbook, which can sometimes be a bit formal or just not what people commonly say in everyday chat.
Yeah, you can have perfect grammar, use shadowing, but if your phrasing is always super formal or sounds like it's translated directly from your first language.
It can still sound a bit unnatural, a bit stiff,
Yeah.
or, as one source put it, like a translation.
You want it to sound like authentic spoken English.
Exactly. And authentic spoken English is full of informal expressions, common idioms, and just ways of saying things, collocations that native speakers use all the time without thinking.
Okay, so give us some examples. How does this work in practice?
Well, one source gave a great example with a really basic situation, agreeing with someone.
Okay. The textbook phrase is probably, I agree.
I agree, which is perfectly fine, grammatically correct. But native speakers don't only say, I agree. They use loads of different phrases depending on how much they agree or the context.
Right, so if you strongly agree.
You might say something like, exactly, or totally, or absolutely. Much more common in conversation than just repeating, I agree over and over.
Totally. Yeah, you hear that a lot.
Or if you want to show you really share their opinion, maybe something like, that's so true. Or you can say that again.
Or, I couldn't agree more. If you want to be emphatic, maybe slightly more formal.
Precisely. Using these variations adds nuance, it adds flavor, and it just sounds much more natural than sticking to the one basic phrase.
Okay, good example. What about disagreeing or expressing doubt?
Well, instead of always a blunt, I disagree, or I doubt that, you might hear softer, more indirect phrases in conversation, like, I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah, that sounds more gentle.
Or, well, maybe, but followed by your point. Or even just a thoughtful, I see what you mean, but have you considered? It depends on the situation, of course.
And how about something really common, like saying you don't know?
Ah, yes, another great one. I don't know is fine. But listen to native speakers. You'll hear, I have no idea. Very often.
I have no idea.
Yeah, much more expressive sometimes.
Or maybe something a bit more hesitant or polite, like, I'm not really sure, to be honest.
Adding that, to be honest, makes it sound quite natural, doesn't it?
It does. It's a common conversational tag. And then there's the very informal, but really common, beats me.
Beats me. Like, where are my keys? Beats me.
Exactly. You wouldn't use beats me in a formal report, obviously.
No, definitely not. But in a casual chat with a friend, perfectly natural. And that highlights the key thing. It's not just about learning more phrases. It's about learning the right context for them.
Understanding the formality level, the register.
Yes. And the sources suggest learning these common phrases like, I have no idea, or couldn't agree more, or beach me as whole chunks.
Not word by word.
Not trying to build them word by word each time, but learning them as a single unit, a ready-made phrase you can just pull out when needed. Like native speakers do. It makes your speech much more fluent and automatic.
So building a library of these natural chunks.
That's a great way to think about it. Chunks for agreeing, disagreeing, expressing surprise. Oh, no way you're kidding. Asking for clarification, etc. Actively listening for them and then consciously trying to use them yourself makes your English sound less constructed and more, well, real.
Less robotic.
Less robotic, exactly. More like genuine, spontaneous conversation.
Okay, that's really practical advice. Pay attention to those common everyday phrases and start using them. Now, this journey towards sounding natural. It's not always smooth sailing, is it? People make mistakes along the way.
Oh, definitely. And the sources we looked at were good at pointing out some common pitfalls, common mistakes learners make when they're specifically trying to sound more native-like. Knowing these can save you some frustration.
Good. Let's hear them. What's mistake number one?
Probably the biggest one is trying to speak too fast.
Ah, yeah. Thinking native speakers sound fast, so I need to speed up.
Exactly that logic. But it often backfires. True fluency, as the sources stress, isn't just about raw speed. It's about speaking smoothly.
With the right rhythm and pausing.
Yes, with appropriate rhythm, stress, and natural pauses for breath and thought. When you force yourself to speak faster than you're comfortable with, especially before you've mastered the connected speech and rhythm,
You just trip over your words.
you tend to mispronounce things, maybe mumble, your rhythm gets choppy, you don't pause naturally. It actually ends up sounding less fluent, less clear, and more rushed and awkward.
So the advice is,
Focus on clarity and smoothness first. Speak at a pace where you can articulate clearly. Use natural rhythm and linking. Don't rush. Your speed will naturally increase as you get more comfortable and practiced. Smoothness over speed initially.
okay, good tip. Don't force the speed. What's another common pitfall?
Misusing or overusing slang.
Ah, trying too hard to sound cool.
Something like that. Look, learning some slang is useful, definitely. It helps you understand informal conversations, movies, music.
Sure, you need to understand it.
But using it yourself requires care. The sources mention learners sometimes pick up slang terms and then use them everywhere, or in totally inappropriate situations.
Like the example they gave using, you, dude, that's totally lit.
Yeah,
Job interview.
exactly. While lit might be common slang in certain very informal contexts among younger people, using it in a formal setting or peppering every sentence with different slang terms.
It just sounds weird.
It sounds incredibly forced, unnatural, and often just wrong for the situation. It doesn't make you sound fluent. It makes you sound like you're trying way too hard and maybe don't understand the nuances.
So context is king again.
Absolutely crucial with slang and any informal language. The advice is, observe carefully. When do native speakers use this term? Who do they use it with? What's the relationship? What's the setting?
Don't just learn the word, learn its social rules.
Precisely. Understand the register, the formality level.
Yeah.
Use slang sparingly, and only when you're confident it fits the context. Otherwise, stick to more neutral language.
Okay, sensible. Avoid the speed trap, use slang carefully. Any other big mistakes?
Yes, and this one is perhaps the most critical according to the research we saw. It's simply not practicing speaking out loud enough.
Spending all your time listening or reading but not actually talking.
Exactly. People spend hours watching movies, listening to podcasts, doing grammar exercises, building vocabulary lists, all valuable input. But if they don't consistently practice producing the language, speaking it out loud, their progress in pronunciation and spoken fluency will be much, much slower.
Back to the muscle memory idea.
Absolutely. Your mouth, your tongue, your vocal cords, they need the physical workout. Listening teaches your brain what the target sounds like. But only speaking practices the muscles to make those sounds correctly, automatically, and fluidly.
You have to build the motor skills for speech.
You do. One source was very clear. Listening alone is not enough to improve your spoken naturalness significantly. You must engage in active production.
So things like shadowing.
Shadowing, reading aloud,
Yeah.
just talking to yourself in English, describing what you're doing, practicing dialogues, finding language partners. Whatever it is, you need regular, consistent spoken output.
Make noise in English.
But that's the message. Don't be a silent learner if you want to sound natural.
Okay, so summing up the pitfalls. Don't equate fluency with speed. Focus on smoothness. Be super careful with slang and context. And crucially, make sure you are actively practicing speaking out loud regularly.
Got it in one. Avoid those traps, and you'll progress much more effectively.
Now, building on this, there's another layer the sources touched on, which is really fascinating. It's the cultural significance wrapped up in spoken English.
Yeah, this goes beyond just the mechanics. It's about how the way you speak interacts with cultural norms and perceptions.
How you say something can be as important as what you say.
Exactly. How you speak isn't just about getting information across. It subtly signals things about you, your attitude, your background, your relationship to the listener, all within the context of English-speaking cultures.
And things like tone and pronunciation can really influence how people perceive you.
They can. One source looked at cross-cultural communication and pointed out how vocal delivery tone, intonation, even rhythm can shape perceptions of things like confidence, friendliness, sincerity, or even competence sometimes.
Wow. So getting the music right isn't just about sounding nice, it affects how your message lands.
It can, yeah.
Yeah.
We talked about intonation earlier, the rise and fall, but culturally it carries weight.
Like your example of how are you?
Right. Saying, how are you, with a completely flat tone, or even falling at the end, might be grammatically perfect. But in many Anglo cultures, it could come across as abrupt, maybe disinterested, or even unfriendly.
Whereas a slight rise at the end, how are you, sounds warmer.
Generally, yes. It signals more openness, more engagement, more politeness in that specific interaction. That little change in melody carries social information.
That's subtle but important.
Very. And think about regional accents, too. While learners usually aim for a more standard or widely understood accent, the huge variety of accents within English-speaking countries shows how pronunciation is tied to identity, place, and social groups. Understanding this adds depth to your listening.
It helps you appreciate the diversity within the language itself.
Exactly. And this brings us back again to things like reductions, particularly common in, say, American English.
Like gonna and wanna.
Yeah. Using gonna instead of going to or wanna instead of want to isn't just about speaking faster. It's also a marker of informal speech.
It signals you're in a casual context.
It can, yes. And using these common reductions appropriately in informal settings can help a non-native speaker sound more relaxed, more natural, maybe even help them fit in phonetically in that specific context, if that's something they're aiming for.
So learners don't have to use them.
Not necessarily to be understood, no. But recognizing them is absolutely vital for understanding native speakers talking at a normal pace. And choosing to incorporate some of the most common ones, like gonna and wanna, in casual speech can definitely contribute to sounding more natural.
It's about understanding the whole phonetic landscape, including these variations.
Right. So paying attention to these cultural and social dimensions, when you listen to the tone, the intonation patterns, the signals sent by using reductions or certain phrases in certain contexts, it gives you a much richer understanding of the language as it's actually lived and used.
It's like learning the unspoken rules hidden in the sounds.
Beautifully put. That's
Ah.
exactly it.
Okay, this has been incredibly insightful. We've gone from detective listening through active shadowing, adding natural phrases, avoiding pitfalls, and understanding the cultural side. Loads of great stuff.
Hopefully really useful for people.
Absolutely. But information is one thing, action is another. So now it's time for the challenge.
Right. Time to put something into practice today. Don't just file this away. Use it.
Okay, here is your actionable challenge based directly on the techniques we've discussed from the sources. It's in 3 simple steps. Ready?
Let's hear it.
Step 1. Today, find a short piece of English audio or video, something you actually like. A YouTube clip, a scene from a show, a minute of a podcast, whatever. Keep it short.
Okay, find a short clip.
Step 2. Pick just one sentence from that clip. Listen to it carefully. Then pause it. Now, shadow it out loud, repeat it, focusing like crazy on matching the speaker's intonation, their rhythm, their tone, everything.
Mimic that one sentence.
Then play it again and try shadowing simultaneously, speaking along with them. Do this a few times just with that one sentence. Really drill down on it.
Got it. Shadow one sentence intensely.
Step 3. Make a commitment to yourself to try and use one new natural phrase that you learned about today, or maybe one you noticed while listening.
Like an alternative for I agree or I don't know.
Exactly. Or any other natural expression you picked up. Try to consciously slip it into a real English conversation sometime today. Even a quick chat online or with a colleague. Just try using one new phrase.
Okay, find a clip, shadow one sentence, use one new natural phrase. Simple steps.
Simple, focused actions, but doing them consistently. That's how you build the skills. Shadowing that sentence builds the physical technique. Using that phrase starts integrating natural language into your active speech.
It trains your ear, your mouth, and your brain all at once.
And as you do this, maybe think about who you enjoy listening to in English. Is there an actor whose accent you like? A podcaster whose rhythm feels natural? A public speaker?
Yeah, having a model speaker whose sound you admire can be really motivating for your listening and shadowing practice.
Gives you something concrete to aim for.
Definitely. And speaking of practice, especially that speaking practice we emphasized, our next deep dive is actually going to focus specifically on how you can get effective speaking practice even when you're totally alone.
Ooh, okay, that's super relevant for a lot of people. Practicing speaking solo.
Yep, ways to boosts your fluency and confidence even without a conversation partner right there.
Brilliant. So definitely stay tuned for that one.
Mm-hmm.
And until then, keep listening with those detective ears. Keep making noise in English. Practice those sounds out loud through shadowing or just talking to yourself.
Don't be afraid to experiment.
Yeah. And find the enjoyment in it, discovering the music, the nuances of spoken English. It's not just about correctness, it's about learning to play the language naturally.
That's such a great way to frame it. And that conscious imitation, like with shadowing, it feels like copying at first, but it's deeper than that.
How so?
It's about internalizing the underlying patterns, the pulse, the rhythm, the feel of the language. You're absorbing its music.
And when you do that,
Paradoxically, it doesn't just make you sound like a clone of someone else. By mastering the instrument of spoken English, you actually gain the freedom to express your own thoughts, your own personality, more clearly and authentically within that natural framework.
wow. So learning to imitate unlocks more authentic self-expression in the end.
I think it really can. Yes, it gives you the tool.
That's a really cool thought to end on. And it circles back to focusing on how things are said, doesn't it? That the tone, the rhythm, the connections, sometimes they reveal just as much or even more than the words themselves.
Absolutely, it adds a whole new dimension to understanding and communicating.
Keep listening, keep practicing, keep enjoying the journey.
You've got this. The tools are all there.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Bye for now.
See you next time.